Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here to talk about my week of reading. It was a pretty accomplished week all in all. I finished a few really big books, so really happy about that. So let's kick it off. The first book that I finished, which I'm so pleased about, is SPQR. SPQR is the fantastic Mary Beard. She's a Cambridge University professor and an amazing historian who writes in just the most eloquent fashion in a way that's really tangible and brings history to life. She wrote SPQR about the history of ancient Rome, and it's fantastic. I could not recommend it more. And so this is something that I read in anticipation of a trip that we're taking to Italy later on in the summer. So I'm very happy to have finally finished this. The key was really pairing it with the audiobook so I could continue reading it when I wasn't physically able to read it in the book form. So that was great. The next thing that I finished was The Long Take. It's The Long Take, Noir Narrative by Robin Robertson. And this is one of the Man Booker shortlists, so that's part of the book club that I'm in, where we read the Man Booker shortlist and then we read the National Book shortlist. And it was interesting. I don't want to talk too much about it because I know that Nikki and Lydia watch. So I want to save some juicy conversation for later. But very interesting, very noir. There is a lot of really interesting stuff in that book, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with them. So if you like noir and if you like social commentary books, and that I think this might be a book for you. And the format was different. It was in a lyric form, like almost like a poetry, but not a poetry prose form. So that may actually hinder some people from picking it up, or it may attract you. So keep that in mind if you go looking for it. The next book I finished was The Old Drift by Namwali Serpel. Oh, I was really rooting for this one. I liked where it was starting. I like multi-generational epic narratives. I think those are great. I like an interesting point in time. I feel like this book tried to do too much. So while it blended genres, which is fine, it blended genres, and it had a lot of characters. It had a lot of tangents that I just wasn't sure where they were going, but there was a lot of really good interesting things in there as well. Just not enough for me to really heartily recommend it. I will be interested in seeing what this author does more of. This was a debut, and maybe it was just too much. I would love to hear if anyone has read The Old Drift. And I'm always on the lookout for books from Africa that talk about colonialism and spread up through modern time, that are done in interesting ways, that is wise and talks about the complexity, doesn't dumb it down. And I think this had some of that. There was definitely a lot of strands. I think too many strands is probably the problem I had with it. So a little disappointed with that one, but happy that I read it. And then the last one I completed was for Aussie April, and that is A Few Right-Thinking Men by Sulari Gentile. So I was attracted to this one because the cover hearkened to the kind of golden age of British crime, had that kind of look, and so I love that genre. So I was like, oh, let me try this. Enjoyed it. It was pretty straightforward, interesting. There was a lot of things I learned about Australia during the time of leading into World War II. So that was very interesting. But it wasn't anything spectacular, and I don't think I'll continue with the series, unfortunately. Okay, so that's what I completed. What's up is the hype is real. It's really real with this one. So everyone's talking about Women Talking. It's a new release by Miriam Towles. I think there's been challenges about that pronunciation, so people have been saying it differently. But she's written a few other books. I have another book of hers, My Puny Sorrows. My Little Puny Sorrows? I have another book of hers that I haven't read yet, but I will quickly add that to my list should this end resolve itself well. Women Talking is the story of a Mennonite. It's based on on true facts that have been then used as source and inspiration for the author as she writes the new book. But there was a Mennonite community in Bolivia, I think it was, where the men of the congregation, I guess, the community, the men in the community were drugging the women and raping them at night. And this was going on for years, and it was happening in families. It was happening ran all through the entire community. And finally, the women realized and put it together what was happening. They were being told that they were being punished, and they must have been, the spirit must have been taking them because of things that they needed to be punished for, their sins, in other words. One woman figured it out, and the men went to prison. So the very beginning, you know that this has happened, and you're with the community of women. And the women talking in the title has to do with the women trying to come to a decision of what do they do. So the men have been arrested, and based on the rules of this community, the women have to forgive the men, then the men can be banished. If the women don't forgive the men, they have to leave the community. Meanwhile, they don't read or write. They speak a language that is not spoken anywhere else except in this community, and they've been completely isolated from society. And so as you're watching them have this conversation and thinking through this, all of these things are coming up. It is so compelling, and it is so well written. I was just sucked in by the first few moments of reading the first few pages. So I am really hoping that this pace and this level of intensity maintains throughout the book, because I'm hooked. So and from all accounts, this one is going to be talked about as big contenders for prizes, and just a beloved book. So that's Women Talking. The next one I'm reading is my fourth book for third book for Aussie April, and that is Jane Harper's The Lost Man. I'm doing this on audio, and the audio narration is fantastic. It's just the deep, rugged outback accent, and it's a very compelling story of a family, 3 brothers, adult brothers. They all own different parts of this land that's all near each other in the outback, but gigantic swaths of land. And one of the brothers ends up found away from his car, as if he had walked away from his car, dead. And so they can't figure out what's happened to him, and they're questioning, did he commit suicide? What's going on? And you start to unpack what's happening with this family, and the culture and the society that's kind of in the most rugged parts of Australia. So, I'm so excited. My first Jane Harper is turning out to be a stunner. The next I'm reading is Milkman by Anna Burns. As we know, that won the Man Booker, and so that rounds out my book club reading for the Man Booker. So we're going to talk about both Milkman and The Long Take at the same time. So I'm just starting Milkman, and I'm excited to see where this goes, and then to understand how this competes against the other books. So that will be great. And then I'm also needing to read Normal People for a book club that I host at work. And so we're reading this. And so we're having our first meeting on Thursday. So I've got a lot of book club reading to do, but it's all fantastic, and I couldn't be more excited. And speaking of excited, tomorrow is Independent Bookstore Day, one of the best days of the year. So I really hope that if you're in the United States and you're able to go and support one of your independent bookstores, to pop in, or at least involve yourself in the activities and make them feel special and loved and beloved, as they should be in our society. I hope you will do that. I personally am planning to hit a few. So I'm thrilled. I'll do a big book haul at the end of that. And then my mother is in town. She's reading right now. She's in town, and we're gonna go away for a little visit up north, and tons of reading. So excited. This is my favorite time and time of year with Independent Bookstore Day. And then there's a big book festival next weekend in Berkeley that I'm beside myself excited for, with all sorts of amazing authors that are going to be there. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend of reading, and we'll see you next week. Bye.